Hello, welcome to the MEIR dialogue on the Middle East conflict. I'm Osama from Middle East Insurance Review. This platform, the MEIR dialogue on the Middle East conflict, is a special and dedicated platform that Middle East Insurance Review has created to keep you updated with what's going on in the region. And today, we would like to welcome Mr. Jason Light, CEO of Emirates Insurance Company, one of the leading insurance operators in the UAE and the GCC markets. Mr. Light is a prominent figure in the regional insurance and reinsurance industry with over 4 decades of experience in various locations, including the London market as well as other international markets. I would like to ask if you could please share with us the impact of the current conflict on the UAE and wider regions from an insurance perspective.
Well, thank you, Osama, and thanks for taking the initiative to do that. Obviously, the eyes of the world are upon us at the moment in the Gulf, and we're all doing our best to maintain as much normality in our business operations as we can. And indeed, they are operating, I would say, fairly normally as this podcast is being recorded. If we look at the various ways in which the insurance industry in the UAE, my company, is impacted by these events. First of all, from an insurance policy perspective, the vast majority of policies that we write actually have a war risk exclusion. So nearly all the property policies, motor policies, household policies, casualty policies, and things of that sort exclude specifically war. So we don't have a live exposure, as it were, at a policy level to the events that are unfolding in the region. Now, obviously, there are classes of business like marine war, to some extent insurances of the person like life and medical, which may have some exposure to warlike acts. In our case, they are not particularly large parts of our portfolio, so most of our portfolio at a policy level is not impacted. And it's still very early days, let's face it, and let's hope the days aren't going to go on for much longer. But at this early stage, I would think looking forward, our concern would be much more on the economic impact of the crisis rather than at a policy level, with those exceptions that I've mentioned. So it's still far too early to say what the economic impact of this is, but everybody watching this podcast has read the news. I mean, I should stress that normal life is to a very large extent, certainly for residents, to a very large extent continues as normal. We have most of our staff in the office. We're trading, we're buying reinsurance, we're selling insurance to the public, and so far that is just going on at a normal level.
Could you please describe the likely impact of the war on the various insurance classes? I mean, you have touched base and referred to some effects and mentioned that it's in the very early days currently. But so many reports have been raising the issue and talking about certain classes. And with that said, also the specialty lines which are being affected.
I mean, I like you, Osama. I've read some of that. Some of the comments are right, technically correct. Many of them, I'm afraid, are not particularly correct. The international marine market, of which the Middle East is certainly part, has operated standard practices for the outbreak of hostilities, which have happened many times over the years in this part of the world and many other parts of the world. And those procedures have been activated. They're well understood by the insureds who have been through this in many cases many times before in their operations, which are by definition international operations. So ship owners and senders, dispatchers understand very well that in the outbreak of hostilities there is notice of cancellation and reinstatement at terms to be agreed. There's nothing new about that, and there's nothing unique to this crisis, or the response of the insurance community to this crisis. It would be exactly as we would expect it to be. And some of us are old enough to remember the Gulf War, but there've been many other hostilities around the world in other places where such procedures have been kicked into action. And in fact, the international market, and I think this is where this war risk issue really resides ultimately, the international market has not been slow to respond to the crisis, and cover is available. And obviously that's at a price which reflects the current hostilities.
What is the potential impact on the insurance companies in terms of underwriting?
I suppose it's fair to say that in any kind of war risk, hostile situation, there can be unexpected consequences. I think a lot of the expected consequences determined by the length of the conflict. Speaking today, it's unclear what the length of the conflict will be. As I said earlier, I think my principal concern really is, if you like, the medium-term economic impacts. I think our only benchmark for this really is COVID. And there we did see some short-term impacts on tourism and retail business and things of that sort, and the property market. But what we also saw was actually an astonishingly fast rebound after the crisis. Living in this part of the world more than 2 decades, what always impresses me is the extraordinary resilience of the UAE. And I think that what we've seen in the last couple of weeks is a great testament to that. We've seen an extraordinary military response, a defensive response. As I said earlier, we're selling insurance today, we're paying claims today, we're making investments today, we're doing all the things we normally do, and we will continue to do that. And we'll see what happens to economic growth. That obviously has some impact on the insurance industry overall. But even if we take a small hit there in the short to medium term, I've no doubt that the country will rebound from that later, and so will the insurance industry.
You mentioned that there has been a response, in terms of coverage, in terms of continuing to operate business as usual. But looking at the near future, probably, how do you expect the reinsurance market to react in the face of possible claims resulting from the war?
Well, the exposure of the property casualty market to the war in terms of actual physical claims is extremely limited. And I would not expect any knee-jerk reaction of the reinsurance market, where they're clearly not covering war risks in their policies. Where they are covering them, of course, they're already making adjustments to their pricing. But I don't see that as something of a withdrawal of capacity. It's a tried and tested set of procedures or habits, if you like, that happen once these sort of things are triggered. And, it becomes perhaps an even more specialty market, but there seems to be plenty of capacity for that. So I don't really think at the moment, I certainly haven't seen any sign of it myself, that in the broader market, that there's a kind of withdrawal of support for the Middle East because there's hostilities going on. I haven't seen that. I don't expect it, to be honest.
What comes to mind also, what happened during the days of the Arab Spring in some markets, where governments have forced the industry to chip in, and in certain cases where there could be some exclusions. But on a different angle, I would ask, do you think that the GCC governments will intervene to pay all the excluded losses?
Well, I can only say I haven't seen any sign of that in this current crisis. I think it's important to remember, Osama, although for those of us who are living through it, it seems like it's been going on for years. As a matter of fact, as we speak, this crisis is 17 days old. It's still a very short period that we've been living with this. I know that the UAE has always been committed to free markets, and that's very much part of its DNA. I think that this is not a time in which a great country like this forgets its DNA.
Lastly, what can insurance do in the current phase?
Actually, I was talking to my colleagues about this the other day, and the contribution that we can make as insurers, of course, we're not involved in the military, we're not involved actively in anything of that sort. All we can do is provide as much as possible an atmosphere of normality where business as usual is continuing. People are still going to work, they're building buildings, they're buying buildings, they're engaged in their normal, people are going to the shops, they're buying their groceries, they're involved in their normal life. And insurance is as important today as it was 3 weeks ago. You can't have a modern economy without a modern insurance industry. And our responsibility is to do everything we can to support the economy and to support everyday life for the residents here and the citizens, of course, of the UAE, for everybody who lives here during this time. And that's certainly what we're doing. My company's doing that, and many of my colleagues in other insurers, of course, we're all committed to doing that. So I think that's all we can do. I think it's quite a lot, actually, but I think that's what we are doing. Business as usual, I think, is our contribution.
Yeah, it's a great contribution. I would say also, as you mentioned at the beginning, that life goes on as usual in the UAE and other parts of the region, and normality is preserved, which is maintained, which is very positive. We wish you all the best, and we hope for this period to end, and for all of you to remain safe and sound. Anything else you would like to add, Jason?
No, just to thank my friends at Middle East Insurance Review. You, in your own way, you're also doing your bit for business as usual. I mean, this is a legitimate area of interest, of course, not just in this region, but for your readers all over the world. And I think it's important that message of stability and professionalism actually is spread everywhere. So thanks for helping us do that.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. We wouldn't have been able to do it without your support and your contribution.